Hey guys, Scott Michael from Titan Recording Studio here. Today I'm going to be giving you guys a review of the Tronographic Rusty Box pedal and how you can record heavy bass tones with this little beast. This has become my go-to pedal for achieving driven bass tones. I first came across the Rusty Box when recording an album for Seattle noise rock band Wojciech. Their bass player, Jake, was using it and I couldn't believe how great it sounded. Jake told me he grabbed one because he had heard Sandrider, another great Seattle band, that they use one, and he's a big fan of their bass player's tone. The one I have here actually belongs to my lovely and talented girlfriend, Shauna Rodriguez of the band Sleepy Jeans. And she grabbed this after hearing the Wojciech album that I recorded. The Rusty Box is made by a company in New York called Tronographic. It's basically the preamp from a Trainer TS50B solid-state amp in pedal form. The Trainer TS50B is a 50-watt amp that packs a pretty mean punch. The bass player of Shellac used this amp, but since its 50 watts were too little to really impact in a live setting, he'd run it to a power amp and to a separate cab to boost it. The Rusty Box makes it so you don't have to go through all that, but it does boast a line level output made especially for that specific scenario. Its main output can be used as a standard pedal when using an ordinary balanced instrument cable or as a DI box when using a balanced cable. Designed to be like most amps, you have your input and output knobs, input for driving the signal and output for adjusting your volume. You also have a low-high switch, low for active pickup basses and high for passive pickup basses. You have your basic EQ, treble, bass, and mids for shaping your tone. And last but not least, your effect on and off and a boost switch. The build is fantastic. It's a heavy-duty metal finish with sturdy knobs and switches, and it doesn't feel cheap. This isn't some shitty plastic body. So let's take a listen to it as a direct signal first. I'm going to play the bass back with the pedal deactivated, then I'll activate it, and then I'll use the boost option. I'll also adjust the input and output and EQ section for you as well. Here you go. Here's our dry signal, the effect on, the boost off. A little scratchy on the pots, but generally you're going to set this and forget it. There we go. Now let's take a listen to it through a bass amp. I've reamped this through an Ampeg SVT3 Pro and Ampeg 610 HLF cabinet. The mic I chose was a Sennheiser MD421. You'll notice that the amp tames the drive of the effect more. It doesn't bite quite as much as the Rusty Box strictly as a DI signal. It's a much warmer tone overall. So anyways, as you can see, I have three bass tracks here now. The bass DI, the bass DI Rusty Box, and the bass amp. What I like to do is blend the dry DI bass signal with the Rusty Box DI signal and the amp signal. Always check your phase relationship between the tracks. Hearing it in context of a full mix will better help you decide how best to blend your tracks. Let's hear a little bit of what we have. We'll start with just the amp, and then we'll hear it with a blend of everything else. Okay, let's hear it with the Rusty Box DI. Bring that back a bit. check our phase. And with the standard bass DI. So this isn't a new technique or anything. Another pedal that a lot of people turn to is the SansAmp bass driver, which is a great pedal, but I personally prefer the tone from the Rusty Box. Some people just record a dry direct signal and then duplicate it. They then add a distortion plug-in to drive the copy. I like the Steinberg Quadra Fuzz here. They can cut the lows and highs, and then they can blend it with an original unaffected signal, and that's kind of how they do that. Another technique is to just record the bass with a guitar amp to get that driven bass tone. Now, all of these techniques work, but I'd say I prefer to either use the Rusty Box or the guitar amp technique. Regardless, I always recommend recording a DI signal of the bass or guitars alongside your amp so you can try any of these techniques or reamp later. It's just a nice safety net to have in case your original choice of amp or tone just isn't working in your mix. So anyways, that's the Rusty Box and how I use it to record a heavy bass tone. I really love the sound of this pedal. I've used many other pedals for bass drive, and this one just seems to cut better than others. I usually find that many bass distortions tend to drive the mids more than anything, and that's not usually the sound I'm going for. There's a presence to this that can get ugly, but depending on the style of music you're playing, that might be just what you're looking for. It really does give your bass a sweet spot in any heavy mix. The only complaints I have are pretty minor. The input gain pushes the volume so much that the output has to be dropped drastically to keep it closer to your dry signal level. If you want to shift between dry, affected, and the boost, the level differences can be pretty drastic. Some bass pedals have a blend control, and I wouldn't have minded seeing that on this, but for recording, it isn't really a necessity. Also, it requires a specific wall wart, and I would have preferred a 9-volt power adapter to coincide with other pedals you may have on a pedal board. Otherwise, this is a fantastic unit. I highly recommend it. You can pick one up on reverb.com for about $200 new if you're interested. Well, that's it for today, you guys. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you found this helpful. I'll keep plugging away at more videos. Please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and like me on Facebook. And if you're looking to have your music professionally mixed and or mastered by me, check out the website below. All right, you guys. Later.